this today's video, I'll be talking about the possibility and the legal implications of buying a property on behalf of another person. All right. Now, for you to be able to buy or sell a property on behalf of another person, you would need a power of attorney. A power of attorney is simply a document that authorizes the agent to act in the place of the owner of the property. All right, so it's more like an instrument of delegation. It delegates duty. Okay, so for the fact that it delegates duty doesn't mean it transfers the ownership of that particular property to the agents. All right, it's just an instrument of delegation and not an instrument of transfer to the agents. Okay, so now in a power of attorney, there are basically two parties. We have the donor, we have the donee. The donor is the owner of the property who is authorizing, giving the authority. Then we have the donee. The donee is simply the person that the authority is being given to act in a particular way. All right, so as a landowner who wants to sell his land and you want to give it to an agent to sell for you, whether you are in diaspora or you are within the confines of Nigeria, or you are busy and you want someone to sell the land on your behalf, the first thing you need to do is to get a power of attorney. All right, get a power of attorney. The documents would be the document that would authorize the agent or the donee to act in certain way to sell that property for you on your behalf, and any sale of that property done by the agent or the donee would be seen as legal and valid. Okay, so and if you're a buyer who wants someone to buy, probably you are not in Nigeria or you are busy or due to one or two reasons you want someone to buy a particular property for you in your name, you can as well still use that power of attorney. Okay, authorizing the person to act in certain way. All right, in that power of attorney we have the general and we have the specifics. Okay, the general is simply telling the person or the donee to act in the capacity, in your own capacity, in a general capacity. All right, so anything you can do, you are telling the person to do it. All right, but if it's specifics, you are outlining the duties you want the person to do for you. For instance, you can tell the person to collect rent for you or to manage a particular property for you. That's specifics. Okay, so having said that, it is pertinent to emphasize here that some states in Nigeria, they make use of power of attorney to transfer or alienate or confer title from one person to another. So does it mean that this power of attorney is a valid title document? Well, that's issue is jurisprudential and is debatable. All right, is debatable, but from my own perspective, a power of attorney is meant to be an instrument of delegation and not an instrument of transfer. All right, but states like Anambra State, Abia State, Rivers State, they all you see them using power of attorney as an instrument of transfer instead of using deed of conveyance or deed of transfer or deed of assignment. You see them using power of attorney. Okay, now, however, if you are using a power of attorney in these states I've mentioned so far, ensure that you register that power of attorney. Ensure that it is registrable. All right, okay, because if it is registered, it gives more credence to that document. All right, it gives more credence. It can be admitted in court as evidence. So there are three major grounds where a power of attorney can be employed. Okay, one of them is that you can use a power of attorney if you are not available, or probably you are not within the confines of Nigeria, you are in overseas or in a different countries, and you may not have the chance to do a particular act, probably like selling your properties. You can decide to give an authority to a person using that power of attorney. Okay, that's one. Number two is that if the donor, who happens to be the owner, is sick, is very sick, probably bedridden, such a donor can authorize a person to act in his stead in terms of selling a property, buying a property, or doing any other thing such as collecting of rents, managing a property, even suing the tenant in that property. So you can even sue and be sued, all right, using your agents or your donee. And all this can be made possible through the power of attorney. The third instance where a power of attorney can be employed is when you want to delegate or authorize an expert in a certain field because you are not an expert in that field. Let's take for instance, most people prefer to have lawyers manage their properties for them. Okay, from our experience, I've seen several people handing their properties to lawyers to manage it for them, on the ground that properties that are being managed by lawyers are, lawyers, they take adequate steps to ensure that these tenants comply and remit their rents as and when due. Okay, so most people normally give these particular professionals their properties to manage because they assume that these people are expert in this field. So that's another ground where you can delegate or use this power of attorney. Okay, so this power of attorney is any contracts or activity that are done within the scope of power of attorney by the agent or the donee can be seen as if it has been done by the owner of that property, or which is also called the donor. So if the person you authorize to act in a certain way or to sell a land for you now eventually sold the land, it's as if you have sold the land. The authority he gives, it's as if you are the one that is giving the consent to sell that land. All right. So what most people fail to realize is that most people assume that a power of attorney transfers the property from the owner to the agent or the donee, but that's not true. It doesn't transfer, it only authorizes them to act in certain ways and not transfer, so to speak. Okay, there are instances where members of the family may decide to get a power of attorney and then authorize an agent to sell a particular land for them. So the agent doesn't need to come back again and seek the consent of the principal members of the family when he has already been given the authority to sell the land. Okay, so any sale made by that agent becomes valid. So what am I saying in essence? Before you buy a property that is being sold by an agent who is not the owner, ensure you ask or request for a power of attorney. Okay, and make sure that the power of attorney clearly authorizes that person to sell that property. Okay, if it doesn't authorize, if there's no power of attorney, it should be your first red flag, and I would advise you to run without looking back. All right, so that's one. And if you are a buyer, you want to buy, if you are a seller who sells property for people, for individuals, not real estate companies, for individuals, and then the first thing you should do is to tell that person you want to sell his or her property for, to outline that, to authorize you through that power of attorney. So it is that power of attorney that will give you the authority and the permission to sell the property. So imagine without the power of attorney, you went to sell the property. Meanwhile, the owner have already sold it to another person. So how will you go about it? The other party you sold to can sue you and claim damages. All right, because and you cannot hold the agent because there was no power of attorney that clearly outlined that he was instructed you to sell the property. So in this real estate transaction, we all have to be careful to avoid issues that might affect us in future. Okay, we all have to be careful. All right, so now I'll be bringing it to a close here, and kindly subscribe to my channel if you've not done that. Turn on the bell notification so that we get update whenever I upload a new video, and share to your friends, your loved ones, your real estate agents, so that they too can learn a thing or two from this post. And do not forget to subscribe to my channel. Okay, I hope to see you soon. Thank you.